Jerry Miller, and this is the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live on every social media platform known to mankind. This show is dynamic and interactive, and it's become the water cooler of chatter and conversation in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. The show welcomes your perspective as long as it follows the golden rule. We don't mind being challenged, but there's a way to challenge in a respectful manner, and we follow that rule very closely. I've been so pumped for today's interview. Michael Kochis, you'll see him in a matter of moments. The George Clooney of policing is in the house right now. The guy is the spitting image of George Clooney. I know he's heard that before. I'll start with a couple thoughts personally. When this guy took the job, it was chaotic in the city of Charlottesville, to say the least. Chaotic on the 8 blocks I love so dearly, the downtown mall. Chaotic in neighborhoods in the city from a safety standpoint. And to steal a phrase from Mayor Lloyd Snook, who will join us next week, I think he has undoubtedly stabilized the organization and given us a metronome of consistency that we want from policing. Judah Wickower, a brother from another mother. I say we have a love-hate relationship. I love you dearly. I think from time to time it's reciprocated from Judah. 13 years he and I have worked alongside each other. My wife working at home. I love you as well, sweetheart. If you want to welcome Chief Kochis with the studio camera and the two-shot. The George Clooney of policing, man. What do you think about that?
I think my wife might disagree with you on that, but I appreciate it. I do.
First question we'll throw to you. Introduce yourself to everyone that's watching the program.
Yeah, so my name is Mike Kochis. I am a native of Passaic County, New Jersey, northern New Jersey, and joined the military when I graduated high school, and I never went back. And never went back because I think as most young kids, I was kind of going down the wrong road, and it's like, all right, it's time to either go in the military or things ain't going to work out for me. So I did, got out, got into policing, and spent most of my career with the Alexandria, Virginia Police Department, where I retired in 2020. And I retired on a Friday and started work as the chief of police in Warrenton on a Monday. And so I was there for 3 years, and saw the opportunity here in Charlottesville, kind of watch what was going on for a while, to be honest with you. I think most in our profession was. And so, it came up and kind of put my hat in the ring, and here I am.
Do you prefer Michael or Mike?
Mike.
Mike? You prefer Mike?
My mother will get mad at me about that, but yeah, Mike's fine.
Fantastic. Mike Kochis in the house. So give us some insight into why Charlottesville. And I want to, and you may have heard, I'll stand corrected here. I think the hire was the right one, okay? Mm-hmm. But I need to eat some crow first.
Oh, I watched that show, by the way.
Okay, I need to eat some crow.
I watched it. I was like, who is this guy, Jerry? He don't even know me. He's already like...
I deserve some crow. Come on, give me some shade.
Well, Tito was my guy, too.
Okay, I know.
All right?
Right,
I love Tito.
Right,
so, but yeah, I watched that show. I was like, all right, I need to eventually meet this guy.
I said, and you guys watched this program, that perhaps Tito should have gotten the job. He grew up in the police department. A lot of respect for... former assistant police chief. He has since retired. Mayor Snook broke that news here on this set. Mike Kochis comes into the job this year, and put in perspective, when you took this job, you were coming into the eye of the storm, proverbially.
Yeah, but you come in for anytime you go in an organization, you want to sit and listen and watch, sure. Right? Unfortunately, when I came in, I mean, things were already happening. I mean, we were seeing an uptick in shots fired calls. You had what happened, obviously, on campus in November. And then, like a week or two before I got here, there was the double shooting in Belmont. And so there was a lot going on. But, you step into it and you want to I didn't have a whole lot of time to sit back and just take things in. So I did come in with a 90-day plan and started putting that together right away. But I think the biggest thing that I got out of when I first got here was we have really good people in this police department. It's been through a lot. And when you've been through a lot as an organization, you have people that have perspective. You have leaders that have perspective, right? So what roads not to go down. You know what works and what doesn't work in this community. And so that was helpful because the leadership team, Tito especially, really embraced me and said, and I told them during our first meeting, it's like, look, I need you to tell me where that landmine is I'm about to step on, okay? And so they embraced me, and to this day, command staff within our organization is just we work side by side and just we work together. And I think that's what's important. So
I was so impressed, and we started highlighting as you were turning the ship or turning the tide or turning the momentum. You started doing these walk and talks.
Yeah.
You held this town hall at the church across from Dairy Market. You and it's what we call in branding and advertising. You humanized, you localized, and you personalized the department. Mm-hmm. And the department. Maybe this is me saying this here. Over the last handful of years, did not do much humanizing or localizing or personalizing. Mm-hmm. And you did that. Talk to us about the strategies of the walk and talks and the town halls that you were hosting.
So I initially didn't come into this wanting to or having the idea of doing walk and talks, right? I moved into the community. I live in the 10th of Page community. That wasn't by design. I had no idea what 10th of Page was before I moved here. And so initially getting to speak with my neighbors, one of which is actually a crossing guard here in the city. And so I would see her each morning when I'd go to the gym and talk to her, and they were having an HOA or not, a 10th of Page community meeting that was scheduled, and I asked, do you mind if I'd come by and talk, and meet with the HOA. And we started to advertise that I was going to go talk, and next thing you know, there were like 300 people showed up at the church, right? And so, but I got to tell you, I got a lot out of that event because what you see, or at least what I got out of it was I saw a community that deeply cares. They were like, listen, this ain't all on the police. What we're seeing, we had like 3 homicides in a real short period of time. We were averaging a shots fired call a day. And this was a community that was like, hey, we as a community need to address this. So we then started doing our walk. We still do walk and talks every Thursday. And we're going to continue to do it. They're not going to stop. And it's because the conversations we have out in the community with folks on their front doorsteps, in their living rooms, on the sidewalk, just about what they expect of their police department. And we get so much value out of that. And that kind of has been steering our strategic planning process. What are the priorities of this community? What are the priorities of the folks who live in this community? And that's what we've been doing.
When we were I was personally at that town hall at the church across from Dairy Market, and what I heard from so many folks in the community, and it was regardless of neighborhood, it was regardless of black, white, Puerto Rican, Haitian, it was regardless of income level, is we want the police in our neighborhood.
Yes.
We want the folks here.
Yeah.
It goes against a narrative that a small group is trying to weave on Twitter. I think what I took from that town hall is folks want to see you. They just want to be treated fairly.
Yeah, they want the communities that are disproportionately affected by violent crime want something done about it. They realize the police aren't the solution, but they also realize those solutions, the mental health systems, education systems, substance abuse recovery systems, have all failed those communities, right? And now what do you have? You have that stopgap. I often use the analogy of a goalie on a soccer field, right? If the ball gets to the goalie, several people on that field have failed, right? Well, you don't pull the goalie out while you're trying to fix all that, right? So we're that goalie right now. And so it's really about being in the communities, embracing those communities, and policing them in a procedurally just way. And what does that mean? It means it's not a zero tolerance every time you're sitting outside with a beer and all. It ain't about that. It's about getting to know folks in the community, getting to know their first names. That in and of itself is a big deal, right? So the other thing I got out of these walk talks, I listened to one of your shows not too long ago. You guys were asking where those bullets go when people shoot, because that's a huge problem, right? We're still averaging, about a shots fired call for service a day.
Wow.
They're not hitting anybody, but where those bullets go? Yeah. I'm going to tell you where they go. You go out and walk up on Prospect and talk to those folks who live up there, or folks who live in these communities, and they tell you stories, and they show you bullet holes in their homes plugged with tissue paper so the breeze don't come in, or tell you stories about not allowing their grandkids to play in the living room because they have to play in another room because, bullets can come through those homes. That's where those bullets go. So they have a real life impact on these communities, whether they hit somebody or not. So we get a lot out of those walk and talks, and you see them stories firsthand.
Talk to us about the gun buyback. Super excited about this. Another opportunity for face-to-face. It seems like It seems like, and this is just a layman's perspective, the buyback is an opportunity for community engagement. Mm-hmm. So many folks got caught up on the X's and O's and not seeing the big picture. It's just a chance to talk to people.
It's just one more piece.
Right.
That's all it is, Jerry. Yes, I've gotten a lot of those questions. Where's the data behind this? Because I'm big on, we need data-driven approaches to crime, right? But data without context is dangerous as well.
Sure.
Right? So a gun buyback program, and I'll admit, there is no data out there that says they reduce violent crime. Okay, but what I can tell you that I'm confident that it does, it's more opportunities to engage with the community. It's more opportunities when people are bringing their guns that they may not want, so they don't fall into the hands of other people, to say, hey, if you have other guns at home, here's some gun locks. Lock them up so they don't, kids don't get them, or get a safe, or having those in conversation. So again, it's one small piece to an overall strategy of trying to reduce gun violence and violent crime in general.
Olivia Branch, who watches this program all the time, put this first on my radar. She said Chief Kochis moved into the 10th and Page neighborhood. I first heard it from her, and when I heard that, I was like, this guy is living in the city. I know for a fact the previous chief not in the city. Sounds like both of them. The last two were not in the city, and I'm not trying to throw shade by any means. But you are walking the walk and talking the talk, living in city limits. Multi-part question. Did you know of the history of 10th and Page?
No.
Second part of the question is, what's been your response to living in 10th and Page? And then the third part of that is, how do we take this neighborhood that is certainly under the microscope, which I think is fair to say, to a level of quality of life and safety that we all want?
So I would argue, I'll start with the last question. I would argue it is a safe community.
Okay.
It's a wonderful community.
Okay.
And so I didn't know what 10th and Page was. I think like anyone that's getting a job in the city of Charlottesville, you're going to look in the city of Charlottesville, you go on Zillow and all those things, and you're trying to figure out where am I going to live, rent, buy, what is it, and it's like, it hits you in the face. I'm come from Northern Virginia. So I'm thinking like, man, this is going to be great. It's
pricing?
Cheap to live, price. Oh, heck no.
Right.
No, it's expensive to live in the city, and there's not a lot of inventory, rental or otherwise. So my wife actually found a house. She's like, oh my God, I love this house. We're going, let's go down. And Prince William's not far from here, but so we took a ride down and fell in love with it. And we were like, yeah, absolutely. So we put a contract on it, and here we are. So love the community. It goes to your next question. So this is the first time in my 25 years of policing I've actually lived in the community that I've worked.
Wow.
All right. And you don't see that often in policing for many, many reasons. But the organic conversations I have with my neighbors, the homicide that happened over on Hardy Drive, I remember coming home that night, and my neighbors were outside, and they're like, Chief, like, you could see they want something done, right? Like, the conversations I have with my neighbors about just the violence that we're seeing, there's shots fired, calls. I mean, it hits home. They have kids. There are folks that live in that community their entire life. Many of them own those homes, and now probably can't afford the taxes that they're paying on those homes, right? So it's a great community. I love the 10th Page community, and I think it gets a bad rap because it's a safe community.
Chief Reeves, your counterpart at Albemarle County, made a comment on the record in the media about working with the Charlottesville Police Department and the University Police Department. And he made the comment which really resonated with me. This is the first time in a long time that the University Police Department, your department, and the Albemarle County Police Department are communicating and sharing stats and data. And it was important, especially with some of the crime that's happened on the corner.
Right.
And we also had an incident that crossed from city to county lines. Give us some insight into that communication and how you guys are working alongside each other, and perhaps why that was not happening in the past.
You'll notice I try not to focus on what my predecessors did or didn't do, because who am I to judge them?
Sure.
Right.
That's
and
fair.
So there's that. But I will say, I give Tim Longo a lot of credit, because before I even started the job here, he reached out to me. It was announced that I got the job, and he reached out and said, "Hey, listen, we're having this kind of stuff going on. We need to kind of get together. It's like, absolutely. What, you mean, where I come from, that in Northern Virginia, chiefs, are very tight. It's a tight-knit group. So I'm like, y'all aren't, that's not happening. And so we talked about doing a regional CompStat meeting, which is basically monthly we sit down. Everybody, not just us three chiefs. There's the Commonwealth Attorney's offices, the FBI, U.S. Attorney's offices, and we're looking at data. We're looking at all kinds of information. We have juvenile justice services there, taking everything in so we can develop data-driven strategies to address these very complex issues that don't respect boundaries. They don't respect boundaries, right? So I think our community expects us to be communicating and working together. They should expect us to do that. This stuff about, this is happening in the city, it ain't your business, it ain't my, no, it doesn't work that way. Things are too complex.
A lot of comments coming in. Jonas Smith on LinkedIn says, thank you, Chief Kochis. John Blair from Stanton says, thank you, Chief Kochis. BJ Berglund says, much respect for Chief Kochis and the Charlottesville Police Department. It's Carly Wagner is giving you props on the goalie analogy. Kevin Higgins in Albemarle County's got a question that we're going to get to in a matter of moments. Mm-hmm. The feed is blowing up here. We thought it would with Chief Kochis, the George Clooney of policing in the house right now. I'm going to throw...
I'm never going to hear the end of that, Jerry.
It's very much a compliment. I'll throw this to you here. How have you seen your strategies and your procedures and your protocols be successful so far? Mm-hmm. Maybe an example. And then what is left to accomplish, or where do we still need to go?
So let's talk about strategies to address crime, right? First of all. And 6 months a little too early. We really need to be talking about that in a year when we start looking at data, right? Uh-huh. We are seeing some successes, but really, you'll see a month of our shots fired calls go way down. Then the next month they tick back up again. And so you really, if you're going to look at data, you really need to look at about a 12-month approach. But let's talk about the other things, right, like internally. So staffing. At the end of the day, we can't do anything without people, right? Hot spots. When you look at those hot spots on a map, all those dots represent real people that are affected by violent crime, people are affected by, and therefore the folks going into those communities to address these issues are real people within our agency, right? So we're in the people business. And so when we recognize that and we start focusing on treating the folks within our organization in a way with dignity and respect, with process, explaining them with the why, holding them accountable, giving them a voice, that will then translate to the community, right? So when we talk about procedural justice in the community, we can't expect our officers to treat the community in a procedurally just way if we're not treating them the same internally. I can't be calling my officers names, okay? I can't, personnel matters, right? Personnel matters don't get discussed outside of the organization, or with the PCOB they get discussed, right? Mm-hmm. But even then, I don't have to go and talk about someone that I terminated or demoted or anything, both of which I've done in my 6 months here. But see, folks don't have to know all of that to that level of detail. They just need to know and trust that we are being accountable. And that brings me to trust in the community, right? The Police Citizen Oversight Board. They've been great. They really have. What a great group of folks who care about this community and care about good policing. The new executive director, Inez Gonzalez, she has full access to our police department, internal affairs. She walked body cam footage. She could come in and view anything at any time. And I think it's been great. And so doing that has allowed us to create an environment where people want to come work here. And so we just put our largest and most diverse class into Police Academy last Wednesday.
Nice.
14 officers.
It's awesome.
And it's the first minority class we've ever put in.
Wow.
And now we're getting folks from other organizations, other police departments looking to come here as well. So how do you measure that? It's a constant measure, right? And there's lots of things you can measure. It's just not about the crime data, but that's an important piece.
How do we, and I think the narrative is changing, and you are leading this charge along with your team of changing the narrative. I think we, with our reach and influence, are very much helping with that as well. Mm-hmm. How do we drive interest into the vacancies so you have a full department? We've talked with some of your, heavy hitters in the department. That said, we've had basically a third of the department empty for an extended period of time. A very small percentage of the department can afford to live in the city.
Yep.
And we're competing with jurisdictions around Central Virginia that have essentially equivalent pay, that are potentially offering more perks, and the cost of living is less than Charlottesville City, and there's no commute.
Right.
So all these elements are working against hiring. How do we change the headwinds and make them tailwinds to drive bodies and get 100% occupancy with every seat in your department?
So the former, my former, I was the president of the union when I was in Alexandria. So I never thought I'd ever say this, but money's not everything.
Okay.
It really isn't. Environment matters. Words matter. Words of your elected leaders matter. Right. And I think what we're seeing in the city of Charlottesville right now is a governing body that's trying to govern. Right. We've ramped down the temperature. We're focusing on the business of the city of Charlottesville, everything from council to our department heads. And people are seeing that, right? So that's a recruiting tool. You need stability. Nobody wants to go work in a place where they have to worry about being fired or their career being ruined for something, for a mistake. Sure. And, there's different types of mistakes. There's a mistake of the mind, a mistake of the heart, right? And as chief, you have to know which is which and what needs to be done to address either. Some things are pretty serious discipline. Most things, training. Most things, people need to be trained, and things need to be addressed, and so I think it's an overall environment. It's not a one thing, But we're doing things. We're looking at upping our bonuses for certified officers. They bring value because they come to the department and they can hit the street right away, right after field training, as opposed to an academy recruit where we're talking 10, 12 months.
Wow, it's that long?
Oh yeah. So you got the police academy's 5 months, field training's another 3 to 4 months. So, yeah, you're talking some time. But we're doing it. We are. Collective bargaining is up and running. The union goes to the table here in the next few weeks. And so I think there's a real opportunity for them to work on the pay and benefits. And I know, and council's been very supportive of trying to get us to where we need to be. I personally believe this is probably one of, if not the best organization, law enforcement organizations that I've ever worked with.
Wow.
And we need to show that. We need to prove it, right? And we need to continue to hold ourselves accountable and do it in a way that's respectful.
How did you consider the brand image that was Charlottesville before taking the job? I'm sure that because you're the sharpest knife in the drawer here, I'm sure, followed or caught wind of perhaps dysfunction, that's my word, that was local government, previous councils. That was very well documented, not only locally, but regionally and nationally in the news. I would bet you chatted with folks that had some intel or knowledge about Charlottesville, and I would bet some of those folks said, do not take this job. So all that to you, Chief Kochis, the brand that was Charlottesville before you took the job, when you were interviewing, and what some of your trusted advisors passed along to you about the behind the scenes of Charlottesville.
So, I went to grad school at UVA, so I'm familiar with Charlottesville, but I only lived up the road in western Prince William County, so it wasn't far. So I knew what was going on. But in the police industry, or at least within chiefs within the Commonwealth, we were watching what was going on in Charlottesville, right? And so the council meetings and all that, and so I'm not going to try to define what former policy maker. I'll let you do that.
Sure.
But I knew what I was getting into. When you go through a chief's process, a lot, just like a manager's process or other executive level processes, they're held very secret for a while. So the chief's one, it was not a lot of people knew that I was in the running for it. And then there was the panel that was the public PCOB did the panel that one evening.
Yeah.
And I remember once it started airing, I guess releases started getting out. My phone started blowing up, and I was getting texts from other chiefs like, "Are you nuts?" And but I had to tell you what a great decision it was, because yes, this community's been through a lot. You cannot come into this community and be a chief of police if you don't understand the impact 2017, July and August had on this community. It fractured this community, right? You cannot come a police. You got to understand the history of this, whether it be the history of Vinegar Hill and the gentrification and how it's pushed folks out of communities, and why when I stand in front of the group at the church, why it's so passionate. Why is there so much passion, right? You got to understand that. So yeah, I knew what I was getting into, and then when I got here, I no doubt I made the right decision because I couldn't be happier. And with the organization, you'd hear things about the Charlottesville Police Department, and I'm just going to be frank with you, Jerry. A lot of what I heard publicly just wasn't true.
Really?
It just wasn't true.
Okay.
We don't have a police department full of racists. We can talk about the implicit biases that all of us have, police officers, everyone here at this table.
Sure.
Without calling them a bunch of racists. We all have implicit biases. And police officers, the difference is when police officers start acting on implicit biases, that's a really bad day.
Sure.
So that's why training is important. We're going through it right now. As we speak, this week, my entire agency is going through procedural justice training, and they hit on implicit bias as well. And so, but man, it's a great organization with good people. And so, just a lot of the narrative that I was hearing just wasn't. I don't tend to find it to be accurate.
How does the department manage? You utilized the phrase hotspots earlier in the interview. How do we manage, or the department manage, crime that's happening in areas that historically have crime versus crime that happens, say, on the downtown mall?
Right.
And we had two very visible scenarios. The Omni Hotel, which we dubbed here the OK Corral.
I've heard. That was before I got here.
Before you got here.
Yeah.
Literally youth, like early teens, preteens, young teens, shooting up in the shadows of a $400 a night hotel.
Yep.
And then the murder outside, and I don't use the name of the restaurant because I don't think it's fair, outside a restaurant in the mall, versus, say, crime that historically has happened on Prospect, for example.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Well, first of all, you have to treat all of that the same.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is whether somebody is murdered on a downtown mall or someone is murdered in 10th and Page community, they both have families or real lives that are affected.
Sure.
Right? And then you have to look at, okay, how is that affecting the community around? Now, unfortunately, and I don't know if it's an accurate statement to say that communities can get numb to it, because I don't think they do. The perfect example, like I said, the murder that was on Hardy Drive when I came home, the community was shook.
This was the pickup truck
This
one?
was the pickup truck.
By the crossing guard?
Yep,
okay.
Correct, yep. So how do you manage? You treat them both the same.
Okay.
You investigate them vigorously. And when I tell you, and I talk about my detectives also, we got to remember, we've had 5 homicides, okay, since January. Every one of them have been solved.
Right.
In short order.
Absolutely.
Okay? When I walk into the office and one of these are happening, I see a detective like sleeping in his chair at his desk trying to solve a case of a person that he's never met. So that's why I get pretty passionate about when I hear folks talk bad personally about officers, right, instead of, bigger issues, right, the bigger issue. But anyway, the crime on the mall is a real thing. I get lots of emails and lots of questions about what's going on down here. And again, there are a lot of systems that just don't have the capacity to address the issues that are going on in downtown mall.
So if I can unpack that, does that mean a lot? We don't
Talk about mental health.
Okay, that's where I was going to go. We don't have full personnel, perhaps. Also, we have a mental health, and I'll be straightforward here. My wife and her girlfriends often were going to the downtown mall, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night for cocktails at Zocalo on a girl's night because she needs a little breather from me.
I can see that.
I'm pretty intense. And our oldest son is just like me. He's very intense, and we have an 8-month-old baby, okay? So she wants to get out and just get some alone time or some time with her girlfriends. They're hesitant now, Chief Kochis, to go downtown. And one of the comments they make is, say, aggressive panhandling and or homelessness and a concern of not potentially seeing a police presence on the mall after hours.
Right.
That to you.
So there's a few things unpacked with that.
Sure.
Right? So if you look at the issues we're seeing on the downtown mall, let's talk about mental health. Right? So the mental health system in Virginia is in complete crisis, has been for several years. right? They're trying to do some things funding-wise, but, I mean, they're really trying to play catch-up, and there's just not the capacity there. I'll give you an example. We have a panel right now talking about trying to put together a co-response model, right, with a clinician, a police officer kind of riding together. I have vacant seats in my cruisers because my officers ride one to a car. But like, they don't have people to put there, right? So they have a capacity issue just like many other services. And so you see that down here on the mall. That coupled with the city has no overnight shelter, all right? So I was just talking to Arlington County's police chief just yesterday and was talking about just this issue. And they have a overnight shelter. They had the same issue they just built. And it has wraparound services. It's kind of a one-stop shop. San Francisco kind of started with that model. L.A. took it, and Arlington County, Virginia's doing it now. And he was telling me the success they've seen is just tremendous, right? Because you can't just give somebody a bed. That ain't going to do it. You need to also have those services there while they're there to help them. That takes money. It takes resources, you know.
You're talking hand up, not a hand out.
Exactly. Yes. So what you have here is the only show in town really is the Haven.
Right.
And that's right here on the mall.
Right.
So you're going to see an influx of the unhoused here, right? Because this is where they could come get services, get food, stuff like that. As to the panhandling, that's a whole separate issue. Panhandling is protected speech. Okay. Now, aggressive panhandling, very different. That's not. But if the city could, if they wanted to, write an ordinance saying you can't panhandle or solicit for money, but that goes for the Salvation Army person at Christmas out there. That goes for anyone else that wants to come onto the mall and ask for funds. That applies. Any ordinance has to.
Yes. I hadn't thought about that.
You can't just say just because you're unhoused you can't, but you can, right?
Very good.
It doesn't work that way. So you see all that happening on the downtown mall, and then things kind of escalate, right? And that's where we've seen the shootings. So,
what is that a council move that would have to write that policy?
On what?
On panhandling on the mall?
Well, yeah, any ordinance in the city, council has to.
It would be council.
Council has to do.
Okay.
It hasn't really. I mean, it comes up here and there, but I don't think there's been a concerted effort to do that as of yet.
Sure. A new city manager. And you know, we're not asking you to speak anything, you know, out of turn or anything. But the scuttlebutt has a new city manager being announced tomorrow.
Yeah, I think there's a
special press conference.
Special press conference.
Yeah,
the city doesn't just do those.
I know, right? Okay. The city doesn't just do those.
Right.
So we're seeing a potential press conference. We got Lloyd Snook on the show next week to discuss this. I believe the mayor's watching here. So I'll throw you an open-ended question about this. New city manager is technically the chief executive officer of the city. You're the CEO of the police department. The city manager would be the CEO of the city, so technically your boss here.
He is my boss.
Your boss.
Correct.
He or she would be your boss.
That's correct.
Your thoughts on how this could play out? We know the current one, the interim, Michael Rogers, we broke that news on this show. He is no longer in the mix. He has pulled himself out. He wrote a letter to city employees, personal reasons. I was a bit saddened by that because I thought,
as was I,
because Michael Rogers done a hell of a job.
He's probably, you know, I've worked for a few city managers, by far the best.
Wow.
I've ever worked with.
Tell us why.
Because he doesn't get excited, right? And I say that because in this business, there's a lot that can happen, right? Media are wanting to know this, and this happens, right? And he's steady. He's that steady, and it's about business, right? It's about doing things the right way. He said something to me that'll stick for a long time. He's like, you know, Chief, if the process isn't correct, the results may not matter, right? And so he's a process guy, and I've taken that and kind of implemented that. Like, really, we focus on process. And so I've gotten a ton out of him in a short time I've worked with him. And, I mean, he's seen it all. You know, I mean, you can't – we would have been lucky to have him for a long time. Amen.
Michael Rogers, if you're watching, post-time or in real time, I'll also give you some props. maybe the sharpest dressed city manager I've ever seen.
Yeah,
the guy is always flossing.
Yes,
always flossing.
Yes, and he'll judge you if you don't have like different pairs of shoes. Like you got to have more than one pair of shoes as his thing. So,
I love it, Michael Rogers. So the new city manager, the expectation is sometime tomorrow we'll know, so say 24 hours. Your thoughts on this?
So one thing I've learned in my 25 years of policing, there's only one constant, the one thing that's always constant, that's change, right? And so, even coming up through the ranks, you have a sergeant you like, and then they're going to get moved, and then you become a sergeant. You have a lieutenant you like that's work. There's always movement. That's always going to happen. And so, to me, it's not going to change what we're doing at the police department. I'll meet with whoever the new city manager is. They're going to give me more marching orders. What's your vision, sir or ma'am? And that will. The benefit we're having is we are in the early stages of our focus groups internally for our strategic planning. So when we sit down with the new city manager, I could take his or her vision and implement that into our strategic priorities, and we'll keep driving along. So I'm not worried one bit.
We'll take questions here, and we're very mindful of Chief Kochis' time, so please put the questions in the feed. We'll relay them live on air. This one from Bozeman, Montana.
Oh, wow.
A family that has a home in Montana that also lives in the city. So they're summering in Montana. And it's about the support you feel from the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office. How supported do you feel by, say, Mr. Joe Plantania, who's come on this program?
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
Joe's great. I was just with Joe this morning at 10 o'clock at a meeting. We talk probably every other day about one thing or another. Very supportive. He and I's relationship early on was false. We had a mutual friend, so we got together very early on and have a great relationship. Very supportive, and he's open to ideas and suggestions, which I think is helpful. Ultimately, he's the elected Commonwealth attorney. I mean, he's got to make those very tough decisions, and he has to make different calculations that we do in law enforcement. There's a reason why the police do their part, and then the prosecutors do their part, right? There's those different levels within the system for a reason. And so it took me several years to understand that as a cop, but I do now. But we have a great relationship, very good relationship.
This one from Bill McChesney on McIntyre. He says, Chief Kochis, the feedback or the dynamic with former police chief Tim Longo. Can you put that in perspective for us?
He's a great guy.
He is a great guy.
Tim's a good dude. I saw him at the gym yesterday morning.
He's jacked.
Yeah, man. His energy level. I'm like,
no.
Yeah, because he was walking in when I was walking out, and I was just like, man, you got a suntan and everything. Like he's Tim's a great guy. Like, see, he was one of the first people to reach out to me when I got this job, and me, him, and Colonel Reeves talk all the time, and yeah, great relationship.
This is a tough question here.
Sure.
Chief Kochis, is this the final job?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us why.
Oh, well, because I've already retired once, so I'm not going anywhere else.
I love that answer.
This is it. My wife wouldn't let me. No way. Because, no.
Let's champion your better half. Put in perspective your wife, married to a police chief.
Yeah.
Very few jobs where you leave the house, you put on a bulletproof vest, you have a gun on your hip, and you wonder if you come back home safe.
Yeah, she's been dealing with it for a long time. So, and you have to have a support system at home or you can't do this job. I also have two sons. They're older. One's 21, one's 18, getting ready to go to Radford here in a few weeks.
Nice.
And so she's been dealing with it a long time, whether when I was in homicide, the phone calls in the middle of the night, to, even now, I get calls all the time in the middle of the night, and she's like, take that phone and go in the other bedroom and go to sleep, because it'll keep ringing. Yeah. I guess she's used to it. She's used to it. Just it's, maybe early on in the career she would worry more, but now she I don't think she would. I mean, I could be wrong.
What's the life of a police chief like? I mean, is there after hours? Is there? Oh, yeah. Are you on the clock 24/7?
You live in a fishbowl, though. You do, as a chief. You live in a fishbowl. Everybody knows who you are. Right. And so, but that's okay. I mean, that you should know getting into it, right? Yeah. It's a great it honestly is a great job because you have an opportunity to make a real difference in people's lives. The community, like when you see the community, or like again, my neighbors who came to me after that shooting Hardy's Drive, and they were just like, "What? Like we got?" Like you see in their eye, like they're worried, and they're looking at you to come up with some type of solution to a very complex issue, crime. I mean, my God, that doesn't get much more complex than that, right? And so, if you're going to be a chief, you need to be up for a challenge. You got to be willing to put in the work. The community expects it. They expect me to be at meetings in the evening, events on the weekends. They expect it of you. So I love it, but you got to have energy.
Kelsey asked a great question here. Where's Chief Kochis taking his beautiful wife on date night?
We have a few favorites in town. So we love the local.
I love the local.
We love the local. Where did we go the other night? Oh my goodness. Oh, Tonic. Across the street.
Absolutely.
My wife's a vegetarian, so they have great vegetarian options there. I'm not a vegetarian, so those are probably two of our favorite spots.
What's Chief Kochis' favorite meal?
Oh man, I kind of like I'm a steak guy, so
me too.
Ribeye, with just a side of broccoli, not too much on it. But I'm kind of a steak snob, and I could cook a pretty good one myself. So if I go somewhere and they don't do it right, I think there's two
as a suggestion that you would like.
I haven't found. I know there's one right up on Main Street here.
You got Black Cow Chop House.
I've heard good things about
Daniel Kaufman. I think Mr. Kaufman's watching the program. I can vouch for that steak, and also the Aberdeen Barn. Which is in Albemarle County. It's an old school steakhouse.
I'll have to check it out.
I think you would absolutely love it. A couple more questions, and then we'll let you go here. How does Chief Kochis decompress?
So I do jiu-jitsu.
Really?
I've trained jiu-jitsu for about 12 years now.
Okay.
And so I started going to the one here at the Gracie here.
Brent's studio, Brent Millard.
Yep.
Yeah. I think he's watching right now.
Is he really?
Yeah, Brent Millard, also a neighbor of mine.
I've been twice so far since I've been in town.
Yeah.
But so I've trained for about 11 years. And that's, to me, that's that hour that I'm on the mat and I'm not connected to my phone. And it's that, I'm not the chief, or I'm just another guy on the mat, and it's, to me, it's therapeutic. So that, and then golf. I'm really bad at golf, but I enjoy it. That's it.
Last question for you.
Yeah.
And I hope we can do this again.
Absolutely.
I'll say it again, have exceeded expectations, stabilized the organization. The best answer I think any viewer and listener has heard this show is you're here long term.
Yeah.
That makes me so excited. Final question for you here. The message you want to get out to the community about the department, filling the spots that are vacant, and having the community embrace the department. I mean, I think we have to rally around you guys and champion the police and back the blue. And I think the mindset is in this, almost like this purgatory, where it's excited to embrace it. It just needs a push.
It needs a push. My message is to remember that the police department, our officers, are part of this community as well. A lot of them might not live in this community, but they are part of this community. This police department is part of this community. So my challenge is to figure out ways to get involved with us. And we're going to do that. We're still working on that. After the murder of George Floyd, there's one thing that I think we realized as a profession, that simply engaging wasn't good enough anymore, and that we really needed to transition to involving the community in what we do. So an example is like we're going to be doing a community police academy again, right? The difference is when you graduate, you agree to volunteer 10 hours of your time with the police department that year, right? And whether it be at the Tom Tom Festival, we have a table and we have some volunteers with us there. And again, different ways. We just had, again, the assistant chiefs. We're doing an assistant chiefs process now. We're doing a nationwide search. And I had the other chiefs in, and I had a stakeholder panel. And I involved community members. That crossing guard was a longtime resident, was on the hiring panel yesterday. And so involving the community in what we do, I think, is important because, again, that builds relationships. And ultimately, you need relationships to build trust.
I think it's one of the best interviews we have ever done. Mike Kochis, guys, the right man for the job, and I'm so pumped to see him fill the department. I'm so pumped to see this community rally around the Charlottesville Police Department. I'm so pumped for us to get some of the best protecting our streets. I'm so pumped for this narrative to change, and I'm so pumped for this brand and this image that is CPD to essentially evolve into a brand of our neighbors, our brand of community members, a brand of people that you can walk up to and say hello, and say, what's going on with your life, and how can we find common ground together? Mm-hmm. Because I think that's where we need to be. I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate you having me on. Really
Absolutely.
It's been fun.
Absolutely. For those that are asking, the entire show archived anywhere you get your social media and on ilovecville.com. Mayor Lloyd Sanook is on a week from Thursday. Peter Krebs from the Piedmont Environmental Council on Thursday of this week. Tomorrow it's going to be Judah and I, and we've had some pretty great shows of late, so we'll dot the I's and cross the T's on those. This is the I Love CVille Show. We're just trying to be the water cooler of the community, guys. For Judah Wickower and for Chief Michael Kochis, my name is Jerry Miller. Thank you for joining us. Right? And he will tell us when the mics are off.